Okay, well, it looks like we're a couple minutes, so I think we could probably get started by going over the some meeting logistics before we get into the heart of it all. So during the meeting, your line is muted and you won't be able to share your video or screen. You can use the raise hand feature during discussion if you want to speak. Depending on your computer, what you're using, the raise hand function will probably either be at the bottom of your screen or possibly the top left. We will have a discussion period at the end of the meeting. If you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A box. The project team will be monitoring the Q&A box and we'll try to respond as we see them come in. If not, we'll get to them at the end. You can use the chat box for general comments, and we have a couple of poll questions as well that you can respond to. And then if you need the closed caption button, you can click that and it will show Spanish subtitles. And I'm going to hand it over to Mary Lee so she can give everyone the directions in Spanish.
Durante esa reunión, su línea está silenciada y no podrá compartir su video o su pantalla. Utilice la función Raise Hand durante la discusión si desea hablar. Utilice el cuadro Q y A para hacer preguntas durante la reunión. Utilice el cuadro Chat para comentarios generales. Haga clic en el botón Closed Caption para mostrar los subtítulos en español. Thanks, Liz. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Lee. And I want to, Mary Lee will also be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if you want to enter in Spanish, she'll be able to respond and translate for us. So thank you. Just a couple more additional notes. The meeting is being recorded and the recording, presentation slides, and a copy of tonight's Q&A will be posted on the project website, publicinput.com/Passaic County. But if you are having any technical difficulties during the meeting, please use the chat function, or you can email syang.sgbplanningllc@gmail.com. And now, well, welcome, Commissioner Bartlett.
All right, I want to give a thumbs up like those guys on the screen. I was inspired, thinking about bicycling and everything. I was inspired to revive my backyard summer scene as my virtual background. It's a cold, windy day out there today, but thinking about getting outside and thinking about bicycling put me in the mood to feel like it's summer again. So to everyone who's here, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the first public meeting for the Bike Passaic County Plan, which is going to be Passaic County's first countywide bicycle master plan. This plan is going to give the county a unified vision on future bicycle and trail infrastructure investments. And for those of you who don't know what I mean when I use that phrase master plan, there's a county master plan, and it has all these sub elements from transit to pedestrian safety, things like environmental issues like stormwater runoff is an element of the infrastructure pieces of our master plan, and so forth. So this becomes part of a document that's going to guide what we do and the priorities we set when we are expanding infrastructure, when we're improving our parks, when we are deciding what grants to apply for from the state Green Acres funds, from the federal government through NJTPA, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, where we get a lot of our funding for things like Rails to Trails programs and the Morris Canal Greenway. This plan is going to shape the priorities that we're carrying out in the years ahead. So your participation tonight and your participation through the website and letting us know your thoughts is incredibly important and very, very useful to us, because our job is to be responsible and responsive to you as the constituents and as the people that come to and through Passaic County to bicycle. So the goal of the plan overall is to create a safer, healthier, and more accessible bicycling network for residents and visitors of all ages and abilities. I mentioned master plans. This plan builds on the county's Complete Streets implementation program, which began reviewing the annual repaving program and projects for inclusion of bicycle and pedestrian facilities back in 2012. You've probably seen the development of some bike lanes. Even more than that, you're seeing things like sharrows on a lot of our county roads. That's part of that master plan to make sure that our roads and our infrastructure are there not just for drivers, but for bicyclists and for pedestrian safety as well. So this plan is going to allow households in the county without access to a vehicle a way to reach more destinations, including jobs and recreational opportunities, and also evaluate the kind of connections that those of us that do recreational bicycling enjoy, connections to the Highlands Rail Trail and the Morris Canal Greenway, as well as the county park system. The first phase of the Highlands Rail Trail is about 2 miles of length in Wanacue. That's been funded already. And the second phase, an additional 1.75 miles, is currently being designed and has also received funding to construct. Planning for extending the Morris Canal Greenway through Little Falls, Totowa, and Wayne, altogether about 7 miles, is also underway. Now, the county's been working with the city of Paterson, with the New Jersey Department of Transportation, to create a bicycle plan for Paterson, which highlights the specific needs there. Again, not just getting to destinations like the Great Falls or Eastside Park or Garrett Mountain Reservation, but also for folks that use the bicycle as a way to and from work. And Paterson and Passaic are two of the cities in New Jersey with the lowest automobile ownership rates in households. So this is a real part of economic development and access as well. And the recommendations of that Paterson bicycle plan are going to be incorporated into the county bicycle plan. So everything that we learned tonight together, all of your input this evening and after tonight is going to be incredibly valuable as we make these plans and carry out a project in the many years ahead to make Passaic County more of a destination, more of a safe place for bicyclists from across our region. So thank you again for coming out and taking part of this. And I want to pass the baton to Andras Holzman from our County Department of Planning and Economic Development, who's going to take it from here and talk you through all of the details. Thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to introduce you to the project team tonight. I'm Andras Holzman, the project manager on the county side of the project. Also assisting me is a director of planning, Michael Lisicatos. Amy Jefferson from NJTPA, who is funding this study, is also here. And we have a consultant team for the project. Pete Kramer from Michael Baker International is the project manager. And the self-consultants with him, Susan Blickstein LLC, which is Liz Ward and Sienna Young. And from the NV5, we have Kevin Perry. So I'm going to pass it to Peter now to.
Well, great. Thanks, Andras. So we're going to get right into this. You're going to hear from several of our team members. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that wonderful introduction and overview of what we're trying to accomplish with the plan. So from Liz, who you heard kick off this meeting, Liz is going to talk about why buy Passaic County, some of the benefits, some of the reasons why we do the master plan, and why some of the things that are going to come out of it. She is leading our community engagement process along with Sienna Yang, who's also on our team. So she'll be talking about that and some of the things that we've done to talk to folks and some of the things we've heard so far. Kevin Perry from NV5 is going to give you an overview of the equity piece. We're required to do an assessment of disadvantaged and underrepresented groups and people who are vulnerable to safety issues, and he's going to talk about that part of the plan. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of our existing conditions analysis, what we've learned so far, and how that's going to translate into some of the recommendations that we're going to be coming up with over the next several months. Some of the next steps, I'll tell you what we're going to do over the next several months and how you can continue to participate. And we're going to have a Q&A and discussion piece. And actually, you can also feel free to enter any kind of information, your name, where you're from, any questions you have into the chat window. And again, we have Marilee on our team. So if anybody is more comfortable in Spanish, you can write your question in Spanish and she'll field that and do the translation for us. So right now, I'm going to turn it back to Liz, who's going to start with a poll question. And you'll see we have a number of opportunities throughout the presentation tonight for you to participate interactively and get a little bit of information about you and a little bit of information that'll help us with our study. So I'll turn it over to Liz.
Okay, so this is our first poll question, and we want to know, where do you live? Our first little icebreaker. We had to combine a couple of the towns to limit the choices. If you want to tell us specifically where you are from, please feel free to use the chat. Okay, looks like almost everybody's replied. We'll give it one more minute. Okay. Okay, so everyone can see, it looks like we've got a third from Ringwood and West Milford, another 20% from Clifton, Passaic, and Paterson, and a bunch of other towns. So that's great. It looks like we are pretty well represented there. So thank you. Okay, so why bike Passaic County? Commissioner Bartlett did an amazing job of explaining why the county is undertaking this plan. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the benefits of bicycling. So bicycling has both personal and community benefits. First of all, it's healthy. Bicycling can increase your strength, reduce risk of heart disease, high blood pressure. It's also affordable. Owning and operating a bicycle is cheaper than having a car. And each time you bicycle instead of driving, you save money and cause less wear and tear on the road. Bicycling is also good for the environment. It cuts down on greenhouse gas emissions, air and noise pollution, and can reduce congestion. Bicycling is also accessible to people of all ages. In addition, riding your bike is often faster than driving, and you don't need to find or pay for a parking space when you get there. And there are social benefits too to bicycling. It means that when you bicycle, it means you increase contact with your neighbors and your community. So we want to know that if you ride a bicycle, what is your primary purpose of most of your trips? You can select one, and if you selected other, if you could please tell us why in the chat. Okay, just waiting for maybe one or two. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so about 25% for transportation and almost over 40 for recreation and then exercise. So that's great. That's a good breakdown. Okay. So we're currently in the community engagement and existing conditions phase. Over the next few months, we will be working with the county and stakeholders to develop and refine the draft network and recommendations for bicycle improvements. There will be a second public meeting to review and go over some of those recommendations. And then the final report will be available in spring for review and comment. So I'm just going to give a brief summary of our engagement efforts to date. So the planning process includes multiple engagement activities. There is a steering committee with representatives from the state, regional, and local agencies, and they're going to meet 3 times during the process and will help guide the plan. There will also be up to 3 public meetings. Tonight is the first, and we're hoping in the spring it will be possible to be in person or hybrid. We've engaged with all of the 16 municipalities in the county, and during the summer and fall, we attended more than 15 community events, including festivals, concerts, and farmers markets. We also held a series of roundtable discussions with municipal representatives. And there's an engagement portal that serves as the project website, which I'll show you on this slide. So, since you're here, I hope that means that maybe you found your way to the website to access the meeting link. Let's go here. But I just want to show a couple things about our engagement portal. So I want to draw your attention over here to the translate button. It's powered by Google Translate, so you can really select whatever language you're most comfortable in, and it translates everything. Let's go back to the original. Then at the bottom, you can enter your contact information to receive project updates. And then here in the middle, we would really like you to share your thoughts and ideas. This is where the questionnaire is. The questionnaire is open until January 15th. So you just click on participate in the middle and the questions appear. And then the last thing I just want to show you so you know where it is you can share input on 2 maps. The first map allows you to add points for key destinations and problem spots. Of course, it's not going to load now, very slowly. And the second one allows you to draw lines on where you'd like to see bike lanes and paths. So, the questionnaire and the map, they're the best tools that we have to getting input from a large group of people. And so we really encourage you to fill it out. And if you haven't already. We've also created different promotional materials to help notify residents about the plan. We've handed out stickers at events, which are very popular, you can see, and work great on water bottles. We've posted lawn signs that have been posted throughout the county, especially in the parks. We've handed out flyers at events and posted to social media, email blasts. So our next question would really like to help us out if you can tell us if you've seen any of these promotional materials, and you can select all that you've seen. Okay, I think we're good. If we can end the poll. That's great. It seems like the promotion is working. So thank you. And I'm happy to see that some people got the stickers. We were lamenting that if we were in person, we'd be handing them out now. So to date, we've had about 260 people fill out the questionnaire. They've left over 200 comments and 5,000 unique responses. So some of those key findings that we've gotten to date are that, people are really bicycling in Passaic County. So about half of respondents bike a few times a week or a few times a month. And over half the people reported seeing people bicycling daily in Passaic County. Most people ride for exercise or to enjoy nature. That was similar to the people here on the call tonight, but 20% also indicated that they ride for commuting, shopping, or running errands. And almost everyone, I think it's 94%, said they would ride more if there were more paths and lanes available. So we also asked people how comfortable they would feel bicycling on different types of facilities. So we showed a multi-use path and trail that's off-road, separated from traffic, an on-road bicycle lane that's separated from traffic by bollards or curbing, a standard on-road bicycle lane, and a low-volume, low-speed neighborhood street. And you can see from the results that people really feel more comfortable bicycling on paths and trails, paths and streets that are separated from high volume, high speed motor vehicle traffic. We've also asked people what infrastructure improvements they would like to see. And the responses from this question sort of support the findings in the previous slide that people really want to see bicycle facilities separated from traffic. In the questionnaire, we found that high-speed, high-volume vehicle traffic was the #1 reason that prevents people from bicycling more than they do. But people also want to connect to destinations, and they'd like to see traffic calmed along bicycle routes. In addition to the physical improvements, we asked people what other improvements and changes they would like to see. And most people selected that they'd like more community bicycle events. This is a picture of the Ciclavia in New Brunswick, which is where they shut down the streets, also called open streets. They're really great, fun ways to encourage and promote bicycling in a community. But people would also like to see more education programs for both bicyclists and drivers. Aggressive motorist behavior was listed as the second biggest barrier to bicycling more. And then access to bicycles can also be an issue. There are limited bicycle shops for purchase and maintenance in some parts of the county. And while bicycling is cheaper than owning a car, they can be expensive. So there are a couple open-ended questions in the questionnaire, and so we sort of summarize these. We asked people if they had a magic wand, and most people really, they want places to safely ride their bicycle. They want to see more paths, trails, bicycle lanes, but they also want to connect to destinations and shopping centers and schools and parks. Safety was a big theme in many responses. People want more respect between drivers and bicyclists, and education opportunities, and then as well as access to free lights, reflective gear, lower speed limits. But people also want secure bicycle parking at their destination. They want to know that when they leave their bicycle, when they get back, it will still be there. And there were a few people that did mention that they'd like to see fewer hills. And while that's outside the scope of this project, topography and terrain will be a consideration when developing recommendations. So we sort of took all of that input to date and created a word cloud. This is a summary of input. And these keywords will be used to draft a vision statement with guidance from the steering committee, and will be presented to the public at the next meeting. So one last poll question for you now is, now that you've heard all of that, this is your opportunity. What do you think should be the most important goals and outcomes of this plan? And if you select other, please add it to the chat. Give it a couple more seconds. I know it's a lot to look at. Okay, so I want to end the poll. Okay, wow. 75% safer conditions, which is what everybody wants, right? All right, better connectivity. So thank you very much. This is very helpful. And now I will hand it over to Kevin of NV5.
Unmute. Thank you, Liz. Hello, everyone. Kevin Perry here from NV5. One of the themes or subjects that we really want to proactively pull into the Bike Safe planning process is the idea of planning for all communities and really thinking hard about equity and environmental justice. So on one hand, there's a requirement to think of equity and environmental justice. This is an NJTPA study, so we need to comply with Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So that's one reason for doing this. But another reason is that when we think about the needs of really a diverse set of people who live in the county, and we think about how those needs translate into bicycle routes and bicycle facilities, then we're going to think of really a better bicycle route and bicycle facility solution that meets the needs of more people and is more usable on a daily basis, whether it's for transportation or for recreation or for exercise. So getting into that, we conducted an assessment of equity in the county, really with 4 goals. To identify language services, to ensure that we have an inclusive process for public outreach, to ensure that the facilities that we ultimately do plan are fairly distributed throughout the county, to ensure that we don't create any negative effects, do no harm. We want to make sure that everything is a good, positive addition for the communities that live in the county. And really, we want to consider ways that each individual route that we plan can really maximize the benefits that it brings to to the people who are going to use it. So in the next slide, I'll show you a series of, we did about 8 maps. We looked at, just as a starting point for our equity and environmental justice thinking, we looked at the demographics of the county. And we identified, populations that are considered indicators of potential disadvantage or have historically suffered from disadvantages or discrimination. And we put those to maps throughout the county to see what we would find. And well, what we found was, if you look at the first 2 on the left there, we found that in the southern, more urbanized portion of the county, there's a higher concentration of minority populations and foreign-born populations. To the right, we start to see populations move from south to north, and we see more of a prevalence of limited English proficiency, households below poverty level, and households that do not own a car. And then on the bottom row, there's really no, these are well dispersed throughout the county, but we found that seniors age 65 up, children age 18 and under, and people with disabilities, there's no geographic center point for where all these populations are living, and so they're throughout the county. So this was our starting point, but what did we learn about it? Sienna, if you want to move into the next slide. So what are our takeaways? Really, these are county-wide considerations. Mobility is not isolated to a single geographical location within the county. We want to be thinking about this everywhere. When we look specifically at languages that are being spoken, we found that about 20% of the county's population primarily speaks a language other than English, which is about 100,000 people, which is a big number. And of that, the most prevalent language was Spanish, which is why we're offering Spanish translation services in our outreach, as you've seen in this meeting tonight. And there were certainly other languages besides English and Spanish. And so, as Liz pointed out on the website, we're taking advantage of the Google Translate feature to make this as accessible to people who don't speak English throughout the county as we can. So those were really takeaways that apply to our public input process. But now in these next steps, we're going to start thinking about the bicycle network, and routes. Where would we propose and plan new routes for bicycles? So how we pull equity and environmental justice into that is that we think about mobility that people can use on an everyday basis. So we're creating new ways to access things like public transit and schools and healthcare and downtowns, parks. And then those are sort of the line on a map kind of thoughts. When we start to look even deeper, we think about what type of bicycle facility might serve the most people. Then we'll start to consider like separation from traffic, off-road facilities, even topography. Say there's a way to link 2 different destinations. If there is one solution that has better grades, that is more accessible to people with different abilities, then perhaps that is the best solution that we can propose in the plan. So that's really how we're gonna, how we folded equity and environmental justice into our outreach process, and how we're going to continue to think about it as we move ahead into the planning of the bicycle route and bicycle facilities. And just one last bit of background here is we also looked through prior plans and studies that were conducted in the Passaic County region. And we identified ways that Bike Passaic County can and should either draw from existing plans to strengthen the network that we're looking at, or sort of feed into long-range plans where bicycle and pedestrian activities are being encouraged. The Morris Canal Greenway, of course, is certainly a significant trail that's going to go through Passaic County and really traverse the entire state. So making sure that we're finding ways to access that in our network would seem like a smart thing to do. And then there are, the county level plans. The green stormwater infrastructure element is really going to be educational in how we approach integrating sustainable stormwater practices into roads that may be re-envisioned to include bicycle facilities. So that's sort of the level that we looked at these plans at and drew input from them.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. So hopefully you've gotten a good flavor so far from Liz and Kevin about some of the work we've been doing. And I'm going to talk to you about our existing conditions analysis, and hopefully you'll see how what we found out so far builds on the methodologies, the tools, and the findings that both Kevin and Liz talked about. So Liz gave you a really nice overview of some of the many different ways we've devised to talk to people, to sit down and listen to people. Our approach here is very much focused on listening. We don't want to just talk at people and show you slides and pictures and maps and things. We want to hear what you have to say. So next to that picture there is a really nice example of how we go to events and sit down, have people draw things on maps, fill out comment cards, and use those to frame our understanding of the Passaic County and what some of the needs are. What I'm going to give you is just a little bit of an overview. We've done some very detailed technical analysis. So the first piece of it is the crash data summary, and crash is the technical word that we use to describe what most people call accidents, because really a lot of cases they're not accidental. They're caused by human actions, cars, drivers, people, pedestrians, cyclists, and also sometimes by some of the design of the roadways and the network and some of the deficiencies that we're aware of. So overall, and we do this really in all of our studies, we look at the crash data for a minimum of 3 years. In this case, we looked at 5 years of data. So from 2015 to 2019, that includes crashes of all types: motor vehicles, trucks, buses, pedestrians, bicycles, etc. Any way that people move, anytime there's a collision, a report is filled out by the police. That goes back to DOT, and we get access to that information, understand what happened and why. So in those 5 years in Passaic County, more than 91,000 crashes of all types occurred across the county. It's a really significant number. A smaller number of those, say about 3% were pedestrian and bicycle crashes, and about 80% of those involve pedestrians, but still a very significant number of bicycle crashes. So that's an average of about 529 crashes involving pedestrians and cyclists per year, so almost 1.5 every day. Paterson, which has about 30% of the county's population, experiences 157.5 crashes per year. So that's one every other day. So the number of crashes in Paterson is pretty much consistent with its share of the countywide population. And out of those 2,600 pedestrian and bicycle crashes, 87 involved serious injuries and 40 fatalities. Most of those were pedestrians, but significant numbers as well. So 40 fatalities over 5 years is a pretty high number. And that's, as Liz explained up front, and Commissioner Bartlett, I think, is one of the first words he used was safe, healthy, and more accessible. And that's really one of the big drivers for this study. Next slide, Liz. So what we do is we map the crashes, and because you have this sort of figure 8 shape to Passaic County, we always display our data in 2 pieces. On the left is the northwest portion, much more rural, mountainous, hilly, a lot of water, not a lot of roads, not a lot of people. And on the right is the southeast portion of the county, which includes the suburban areas, the towns in the city. So in the Northwest, what we do is display hotspots. So you'll see areas that are highlighted in yellow and orange and red. Those are areas where significant numbers of crashes occurred. So in the Northwest, it's primarily in the, the major junctions, the major roadways and intersections, but also in some of the town centers that you have. On the right side, in the Southeast, the cities experience a bulk of the hotspots, but you can see a bunch of dots and a lot of roadways. So in Paterson, there are pedestrian bike crashes on almost all of the main roads that occur in that 5-year period. So really wherever people are, is the takeaway here is wherever people are and wherever they're traveling and getting around, they're experiencing crashes with motor vehicles. So the safety risk is wherever people are in Passaic County. And we're focused on, addressing those. So next slide, please. So the second piece of the existing conditions analysis that I'm going to talk about is a metric measure called bicycle level of traffic stress. It's a performance measure that evaluates the quality of our roadways for bicycling. It's, from the terminology, level of traffic stress, it's really evaluates the quality of the environment in terms of people's experience. Do they feel safe or do they not feel safe? So places that have a high level of traffic stress discourage cycling, and places that, excuse me, have roadways that have a low level of stress are much more encouraging. Our goal here is to create a bicycle network that is accessible to all ages. And as you'll see, the level of traffic stress is rated from 1 to 4, from low to high stress. And then just in a moment, we'll display our maps. So any roadway that's displayed in green is that all ages accessible 8 to 80 network. Most adult is the next level of stress, so it's a little bit higher, but still accessible to most adults. Our roadways are displayed in yellow, and then the red and purple are really a smaller number of the roadways that are accommodating primarily just to people that are very skilled, experienced, and risk averse. So what we're trying to do is maximize the roadway miles and the connections and the routes displayed in green. And so let's go to our maps now, Liz. So overall, here again, we've got our Northwest and Southeast maps. So you can see almost every major roadway in Passaic County, county roads, state highways, and even local roads that give us really good connectivity are displayed in those high stress colors, the yellow, the red and the purple. Even more so in the Southeast. So what we do is we're going to go through a series of maps and we're going to subtract out the stress levels by one at a time. So let's go to the next map. So you see a significant portion of the major roadways dropped out when we deleted our level stress 4 roadways. So let's go to the next map. Now you see again, there's another significant portion of the roadway. So up in the Northwest, almost every route that gives us really regional connectivity has already disappeared. So, when we're talking about roadways that are accessible only to, the vulnerable users, we really get very poor connectivity. So Liz, let's just go one more level then. So what we do is these are the, level of stress 1, all ages 8 to 80 roadways. And what we end up with really here is sort of an island effect where people can circulate around safely in their neighborhood, but not really go very far. And that's actually very consistent with what we heard when we sat down with people. People said, yeah, they can ride a bike, a mile or maybe 2 miles and go to the neighbor's house or maybe go to a local park, but they can't get really very far. And especially in the Northwest, you can see how that's happened. Almost all the major roadways are very high stress level roadways. So it tells us that, people are sort of landlocked in their neighborhoods. We've heard that people want to bike, they want to get around for a variety of reasons, but they really can't do that in the current roadway network that we have in Passaic County. So what we're going to try to do is improve the safety on some roadways by, changing the design, and making them more accommodating to cycling. But also, especially again in that Northwest, we're going to have to go to some off-road facilities. So maybe you go a mile in your neighborhood, and then maybe there's a local trail that takes you on a large, gives you access to, much wider range of area. Hopefully you got a good flavor of what we're seeing out there right now in terms of the conditions in Passaic County. But it is definitely very concerning that a lot of people that live in Passaic County are really kind of locked into their neighborhoods, even if you live in the cities, and maybe it's even more pronounced in the cities. You can see I can go up and down my street for a mile or a mile and a half or 2 miles, but I can't get very far, and I can't get to the neighboring towns. It means that kids can't bike to school or bike to a park. They have to be driven because parents don't feel it's safe for them. Opportunities for recreation, opportunities for people to bike to work, those sorts of things, and even social opportunities for people to get together to just maybe walk or bike into town, take advantage of some of the local businesses. So there are a lot of opportunities for good, healthy, active lifestyles that are also good for the local economies. Really aren't possible in our roadway network that we have right now. So this is some of the information that's going to drive our development of recommendations. And so let's go to the next slide, Liz. So again, here's just some of the, the highlights of what I talked about. The majority of our major roadways in Passaic County are not accessible to bikes. That includes the priority routes, the county and state highways, which are high stress. As I said, many residents are stuck in their own neighborhoods. So this is what we've seen. We're not going to stop there. What we're going to do is use that information as sort of opportunities to identify, what can be done, stitch back the network together, reconnect the islands, the neighborhoods, let people get to where they want to go, things they want to do. And as I said, trails and off-street routes are really going to be essential to accommodating both local and regional travel, again, with that idea of the all ages 8 to 80 network. Next slide, please. So that's what we've, it's really just a summary. We've got a lot more analysis that we've done, mapping, conditions analysis, mapping of existing facilities. And as Kevin mentioned, looked at some of the older studies to see what's been recommended before. Commissioner Bartlett mentioned the Morris Canal Greenway and some of the other trails that are in planning, and some are going into design and construction to improve conditions. So we'll add that to our network. So what we're going to do is develop a draft countywide bicycle network of facilities of all types based on what we've heard, what we know the deficiencies are, and what some of the opportunities are. Collaborate with you folks, municipalities, stakeholders, the folks at the county level, and try to develop that network, get comments from people. We'll have as Liz mentioned, the questionnaire and interactive map to comments is going to close in January 15th. But once we have that draft network together, we're going to go back out to you with the interactive map on the Engagement Hub, the website, and provide another opportunity for you to comment on that draft countywide network. What do you think of what we've done? Did we miss anything? Are there any things that we can add? Any things that can be done to make it better? So that's where we're at. That's where we're headed in the next couple of months. And I believe now, Liz, where we have another, we have a couple opportunities here for you to ask us questions. Liz is going to be the moderator, provide an opportunity for people to ask questions. Now, I think, Liz, people ask in person, or do they have to type things into the chat box?
No, yes. So if you want to ask your question in the Q&A box, that you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to speak and ask a question, you can use the raise hand function, and Sienna will allow you to talk. Okay, I see a couple hands raised. So Sienna, can you allow the Green Party of New Jersey, and maybe you could tell us your name and where you're from?
Yes, hi, this is Craig Cayetano. I was a town council candidate here in Hawthorne, New Jersey. So my question is, has there been any contemplation of making a bike pathway or bike trail up and down the Passaic River by like Route 20 area? Because that could connect like Hawthorne, Paterson, a lot of the towns up and down through that corridor.
I'd have to look at the map. I don't know. I know we are looking along the river and there are some other things that have been studied previously, but we will definitely add that to our list of potential opportunities. So,
And Pete, I can offer
Passaic-
a little
oh yeah, please, Mike.
institutional knowledge on it. So I know in Hawthorne, we have looked at the potential concept of a river walk south of Waggawa Avenue, at least near the municipal ball fields. Again, it's not set in stone, but I know there's a portion of it that's already behind the Kohler site, I believe at this point. Along Route 20, we'll definitely take a second look at it. One of the major challenges there is that the highway is really right up against the riverbank. And I know in most of the Route 20 locations, there's not a whole lot there to build upon for a river walk, but we are considering boat and kayak launch points. Andras from our staff is actually looking into those as a way to actually traverse the river itself, not necessarily a river walk, but how to actually get into the river and access it in that sense.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you asked that question. We've, our investigation of sort of the history of Paterson and the areas that the park and used to go right up to the river, and now that Route 20 has sort of become a sort of a highway through that area, and we have been thinking of possibly some ways to change the design of that roadway. So in addition to bike facilities, we will be recommending some other things like that, some sort of big picture things about planning, speed limits, and some of the other opportunities that we think might be necessary to improve the quality of life in the county. So thanks for that question.
Okay, we've got, I'm gonna go back and forth. So we have a question in the Q&A box from Mike Danamiller. He wants to know, would you be able to provide family-friendly access to and from the Willowbrook Mall?
Well, that's a great question, Mike Danamiller. I think I actually have some things that you put on the map for us. And I know this is a little pet project of yours, and that's definitely one of the things we're going to be looking at. And in fact, I'll give this plug. So anybody, in addition to what you're telling us right now, if you want to send us an email or a map or a photo or even a drawing of something that maybe you think is a good idea, please do that. So as Liz said, we're trying to provide as many possible ways for people to participate. So in addition to what we say tonight, if something occurs to you tomorrow, or you're out on the weekend and you see something and you think, why can't that be something else? Take a picture, send us an email, draw a line on a map as a possible thing. So we're definitely looking at that, Mike, but thank you. Appreciate your taking time to join us tonight.
Okay. We have Jim Isa with his hand raised.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Hello.
we can.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm from Highlands. I was just wondering, will there be any particular consideration to have bicycle routes to schools in the area? I know I'm an avid cyclist, so I ride pretty much anywhere, but my son always wants to ride his bike to school, and I wouldn't let him. And I feel very selfish because he sees me riding all the time, and I won't let him ride. It's not safe. I know I'm also on our town's planning and zoning board, and one of the things I pushed for in our the redo of our master plan was to get our streets, all the side streets, one way instead of two way, just to try to help the traffic. But I was just wondering from your perspective, are you looking at roads towards school to help kids. Because I know in our town, there actually are a lot of kids who ride their bikes to school, and I cringe whenever I see them. But I know that's the only way they have to get to school. Their parents have left for work and they ride their bikes.
Yeah, actually, I do have some information on that, but I thought maybe and why don't I give Mike Lysicatos and Andras an opportunity, because I know, Mike, that's a very important issue for you.
Yeah, I would have, and Andras, feel free to chime in and build on it. But one of the things that we are, one of the exercises we're engaging in as a staff, along with the consultant team, is to basically look at the network with the parks and the schools and the business districts as the key hubs. Also transit, obviously transit being, those are the key hubs. I guess I'll ask you, is there one particular school or area that you're in Highland that you're interested in?
Well, we only have one school, K-8 in Highland. That's Highland Public School.
Right, and that's on the westerly side of Highland, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely looking at it. If you can get us any information, I don't know if there was any traction to the one-way network, but we aren't just looking at county roads. And actually, it's a really important distinction of the study is that, for years we've looked at just county roads to improve where we could with our resurfacing program and our complete streets program. And some of our roads are much too busy and just don't have enough right of way in order for us to do all of those accommodations. So we are looking at a mix of local and county roadway networks, and we'll be passing along that mapping when we develop sort of a network we think can be a backbone to the municipalities. But anything else that should be identified as a priority is welcome to be on the map. It doesn't necessarily all have to be completed all at one time, but it can be on the map and sort of noted as we share that as a value add with our municipal partners. Andras, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, that's great. Yeah, we are looking at multiple attractors, destinations.
Yeah, so actually that's a really good question, Jim, to highlight part of the methodology. We don't just draw lines on maps and say, oh, let's put a bike lane here. What we do is exactly what you said, is where do people live? Where do they work? Where do they go? Where do they need to go? Where do they want to go? As Mike mentioned, that includes schools, parks, libraries, downtowns. What kind of trips do people want to take? And what you said is exactly my own personal experience where I live. There's a road where parents won't let their kids cross the street on a bike unless they're of a certain age. And so I understand that key driver. So what we're going to do is, in addition to evaluating all our streets for that level of traffic stress, then we overlay those other things. Where do people live? What are some of the key destinations that people want to go to? So we want to make sure that we don't just say, throw a bike lane here, but throw a bike lane here so that the people that live in this area can get to that school or can get to that park. So that's a big part of it. And another thing that you mentioned is one of the factors that we have to deal with, that many of our roadways are very constrained. People don't want to lose on-street parking. The roads, are not really very wide. So we're having to be a little creative and create, as you mentioned, sometimes maybe you could convert two parallel streets to one-way pairs and free up some room for a bike lane. That works in some places, not going to work everywhere, but those are some of the kind of things that we're looking at. So not just traditional bike lanes where we throw down a bike lane, but maybe some hybrid facilities or some of those one-way pairs. So that's definitely a part of what we're looking at. So thank you, Jim.
Okay, we have a question from Carl Sarkozy. Has the project team been coordinating with the New Jersey DOT on the Route 3, Route 46 interchange project? One walkway over Route 46 has been demolished and will not be rebuilt.
I think that's a question for Mike, excuse me, Mike and Andras, right? Do you guys have knowledge of that?
Yeah, Andras, I don't know if you want me to jump in on that project. Sure. So yeah, we've been engaged on the Route 346 project on a regular basis. It's one of these sort of legacy builds with DOT. Most of the recommendations there have been vetted over, I would say, the last 6-7 years of design. And then there's 2 phases of construction. Right now, they're in the 2nd phase of construction. I do know that there's been a new bridge that's been built. I'm trying to remember the road name. It's escaping me at the moment. There's a new bridge that's been built. There's, I believe, 2 roundabouts that are being constructed. So there's some major safety improvements on the approaches to the main Route 346 alignment, which is really the heart of the construction project that's ongoing right now. I'm not aware of the specifics of anything that's going to be rebuilt as far as the walkway. We can look into that and get back to you. But we did work, and there was extensive outreach done with the city, with the cities and municipalities along that route to really reach out to residents and get any concerns they might have as far as access or design. And ultimately, those flyovers and those bridges are DOT jurisdiction, and they have to provide access under their warrants with complete streets and also through their design team.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Liz, let me just jump in here quick. So I noticed there was a comment from Tom McAllen. Yes, we are definitely aware of the Ringwood study, and we're incorporating that. And just to highlight that, we've actually had discussions with more than half of the municipalities to get some exactly this kind of information. So thank you, Tom, for that comment. And back to you, Liz.
Okay, I see Joe has his hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Joe down in Little Falls, New Jersey. And I had 2 questions. One about the status of the Morris Canal Greenway bridge over the Peckman River. Is that going to start construction in the near term or not? And I guess my second question was, where I'm at in Little Falls definitely feels like, in terms of bike infrastructure, like we're being pushed to bike more out of the county, where the infrastructure that does exist seems best for getting to Essex County and not to like Totowa, Woodland Park, and like Clifton. And the big barrier seems to be at Route 46 and 80. And I was wondering if there are any like short-term and medium-term plans for getting around those in terms of bike infrastructure.
Mike, do you want to handle that Morris Canal Greenway status?
Yeah. So the Peckman River Bridge crossing that's associated with the Morris Canal Greenway, we are finalizing all the final specs. I know we're required by federal requirements to have a inspection firm. We have to have that all procured and hired before the project goes out to bid for construction. We are anticipating that it's going to go out to construction bidding sometime early in 2022. We're very, very close to having, we've answered, I believe, all of the actual design questions. We've lined up the construction inspection. We're just working with the Department of Transportation and our federal partners to work through the last bits of the authorization. But we do anticipate that project going into construction next year. We're pretty confident in that. And then as far as, and it kind of dovetails a little, Morris Canal Greenway is actually a good dovetail into what you talked about with connections to Woodland Park and Totowa. We just recently constructed the Broward Road portion of the Morris Canal Greenway, which is more of a sidewalk and on-street green bike lane connection between the 2 municipalities of Woodland Park and Little Falls, and connecting to some of those off-road elements that ultimately will connect into that Peckman River Bridge. So we have completed that just a few months ago, but we're looking for additional routes. And part of this study, and Andras maybe can touch on what we're going to look at with each of the municipalities.
Liz, I noticed that Lisa Lee had posted something, so maybe we could give Lisa an opportunity. Lisa does a lot of really nice work with safe routes to schools and bike safety. activities. Lisa, do you want to just tell folks, how they can contact you and some of the assistance you can provide? If you're still here. Looks like actually she might be gone. So,
Oh, she's still here.
She's here, yeah.
all right.
You hear? Yes.
Yes, I can now. Yep. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Pete.
You're welcome.
Yes, I was just chatting with Jim to let him know to follow up with some of the things he was asking about with bike routes and schools. And I did put my email in the chat. So for sure, any of the schools or people that are there that are interested in work with schools, we can either help you, or another TMA also helps with parts of Passaic County. I can connect you with your TMA coordinator if you're not in our service area. Would be happy to do that.
And Lisa, want to give a quick safe route to school so people know what that is, and it's a grant program for improvements to make travel to school safer, right?
Yes, we have educational programs. We can do walking or biking safety education. Several of us also have driving safety, how to drive safely around pedestrians and cyclists. We developed that in the past 2 years when the pandemic started. We also have a recognition program with Safe Routes to School that has like levels that you can advance through both schools and municipalities that will help to encourage biking and walking, or work with you to help make things safer, whether that's doing an audit, looking at infrastructure, implementing street smart education enforcement programs with your traffic police department. And then the Safe Routes to School grant is available. It's actually, they're judging the applicants right now, but it's one of the federal grants that DOT participates in that also provides money for infrastructure, signs, lighting, signals, repainting, all of that. But also our program would put you in good stead for any of the different DOT grants. Like the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Grant is due to probably come out in 2022. So by participating in Safe Routes to School, not only will you put yourself in good stead for a grant application, but you also will get points towards Sustainable Jersey, who also helps to promote, complete and green streets, bike and ped, walkways and infrastructure. So yeah, you can just reach out if you have any questions or if you've never heard of Safe Routes to School, and I can provide information separately. Thank you, Pete.
Oh, you're welcome. And part of why we're here is to make sure that folks know that this plan is not the only thing. Mike Lisacatos and Andras and their group are always here to assist folks, municipalities to improve safety and mobility. And that Safe Routes to School grant, for example, even though it says school, we make those improvements make roads safer for everybody. So there's quite a lot of assistance out there. We're not just writing a plan and having it go on the shelf. There's a lot of work that's going on across Passaic County that can help people in these issues that we talked about.
Yeah, those grants are for not just really for schools, but they're really for the schools in partnership with either the municipality or with the county. So municipalities and counties are typically the ones who apply for them.
Okay, thank you. We've got a couple more questions in the box. So Christina has two. I'm going to combine them. She wants to know, is the bike plan taking into consideration transit stations and transit hubs like park and rides as well? And then she also asks, is the bike plan also looking at large employers like hospitals, manufacturing areas, etc.? And is the plan taking in consideration bike storage strategies?
Yes, on all those. So bike storage is one of the critical things. A lot of that's what we hear from people. I would bike to work, but I can't leave my bike outside, or I don't feel safe leaving my bike outside. So we look at opportunities for bike storage, bike racks, bike lockers. You know, some employers allow people to bring their bike into the office. And so that's another opportunity. And transit, yes, definitely. That's one of those destinations that we looked at in addition to schools and libraries and other things, large employers, hospitals. You know, in Paterson, one of the best bike lanes is right in front of the hospital on Getty, I think, Getty Avenue. So, you know, all those things are part of what we're looking at in this plan.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is a more specific question from Nick Grassi. Have you considered anything for Valley Road or Hamburg Turnpike for Wayne residents? I know lowering speed limits and bike lanes was a consideration to have better safety access to shops.
I will just say, you know, we have gotten comments from some of the towns about Hamburg. I think there are some things going on in Valley Road that Mike knows a little bit more about.
Yeah, the county
Yeah.
is currently collecting the data, crash data for Valley Road. See if we can do any safety improvements in the future. That's separate from this study. And there's Hamburg Turnpike, I think, improvement plan that will definitely add sidewalks and pedestrian accommodations to Hamburg Turnpike in the future.
Yeah, it's Hamburg Turnpike's an animal all of its own in our county. So yeah, it's that's Andras is right. There's a more of a long-term plan with our engineering department, and likely that would probably something that's off the road, separated from the car travel, just because it's so the speeds there.
And
But
there's parts of the future Morris Canal Greenway that parallel parts of Hamburg Turnpike.
I also see a comment in here from Mike about the Highlands Rail Trail. I think that Mike and Andras can give an update on that as well, right?
Yeah, so phase one of the Highlands Rail Trail, it's very similar to the Peckham River Bridge. We're working through the authorization process. We hope early next year we get to a point where we're bidding that out. That would be the first approximately 2 miles from Wanacue Ave north, parallel and Greenwood Ave, and then connecting at FAO Recchio Drive, which is about 2 miles north of Union Ave. The second phase has actually been funded for construction, and we're going through design right now. That'll cross Ringwood Ave, go north, include a new crossing, a new river crossing, or should I say rebuilt river crossing, and go up to Conklin Town Road. The next phase that I think is the center of the question here is working with the water company. We're waiting till we really start breaking ground on phase one before we start looking at phase three. But it is an intriguing opportunity to work with the reservoir. We really have to work through the water company. There's a lot of concerns there as far as access and security that we have to be very sensitive to.
And Mike brings up a good point that there may be a trail that, you know, on the lines it's 8 or 10 miles long, but a lot of times these things are done in pieces. The pieces that have the least obstacles or the easiest to design or fun get done first, and then the other pieces fill in. So you may see things, you know, get built and you say, well, why is there just 1 mile of that? It's because some of the other pieces are in different phases. So over time, you know, our goal is to fill in those gaps and, you know, create networks, but you'll definitely be seeing individual projects built, you know, now and in the future in Passaic County.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions in the box. Kevin, I'm not going to read it all, but he, you know, he'd simply like to have the option of non-car use for all trips, regardless of where I live, work, or visit in Passaic County. Makes the point that New Jersey's, you know, our population density is pretty high and could be very bike transit friendly. And that Paterson's denser than Copenhagen or Amsterdam, and so is Passaic. And then, you know, so at what point should we should we move towards the historical norm of making bikes plus transit the main transportation method on streets? So, I mean, I think this is a larger question than our plan, but if we have any, I think this plan is the first step.
Yeah, it's definitely baby steps. We want to prove that these things work and then encourage more people to walk and bike, make transit connections and, and drive less. So what we need to do is prioritize. Part of what we're trying to do is prioritize the things that look like they'll be most beneficial and most successful, and then use those success stories to bring other people on board, and they see these things work, the people that like them, and people can see what benefits they bring. So we'll definitely be prioritizing, things to take place over a period of time.
Okay. Jim, I think Jim Isa has his hand raised again. Do you have another question? Maybe we can unmute.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I hit the button.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that we got you. So Craig from Hawthorne has a couple more questions in the Q&A. He wants to know, will the county consider adjusting the speed limits on the roads that already have bike lanes? Here on Raya Ave extension in Hawthorne, the speed limit has been an issue and concern for those that try to use the existing pathway. That's a very good question.
Mike, you want to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll take this concern back. We'll work with our traffic engineer and our county engineer. There's a specific DOT process that I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not aware of the steps we have to go through, but Andras, any concerns like this, please forward them to Andras. I know he's put his email in the chat. Maybe it's on our website. You can reach out to either one of us. But if there's anything with specific concern like that, we'd love to include in the documentation and bring it back and see what we'll have to get on the ground, see the conditions, and work through it.
Okay. And there is a follow-up question. Is there a way for the county to include the local municipalities into these discussions? I would love to also see bike corrals and racks be afforded to towns as a reward for trying to implement their own plans. We have had discussions with the local municipalities. I believe we talked with 2 police officers in Hawthorne that were very the traffic safety officers. They were concerned about safety. There will be more outreach events to the municipalities as we develop the recommendations. I think I love the idea of a reward. Rewards motivate people. And anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, that what we're not just a network plan, we're a policy plan and master plan. So that is a really good idea. And what we'll do is try to find some ways to maybe promote some grant opportunities or other things. For example, local zoning can be changed so that when someone builds a new building or redevelops a building, that in addition to car parking, they provide sidewalks or they provide bike racks. And somebody else mentioned, I think, some workplaces. So, a lot of warehousing and e-commerce buildings are going up right now. And the people that work in those places, those buildings, are frequently walking or biking or taking transit or some combination. So we need to make sure that when those projects are reviewed locally, the developers make adequate contributions for sidewalks and crosswalks and those sorts of things, because we're seeing people walking in the street or walking in the grass or walking on gravel paths because the bus stop is not connected to the workplace. So these are all kinds of things that we want to make sure that we reflect in the plan.
All right, so we have no open questions. And no more hands raised. So we do have, it's 7:15 and we said we'd be here till 7:30. So we do have a couple of questions for you if you want to hang on. If you want to drop off, that's great too. We just encourage everybody to respond to the questionnaire and add input to the map. It closes on January 15th. And make sure you sign up for updates through the website. So yeah, these are sort of our, if you want to keep the discussion going. If you want to enter in the chat or raise your hand. So if in 1 or 2 words, how would you describe bicycling in Passaic County today?
Honesty is welcome. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Terrifying, beautiful, and scary. Yep.
Chaotic. Possible. That's a nice word. Disconnected.
These are great.
Yeah.
As Liz said, we're working towards a vision and goals based on what we hear. So these are the kind of things that we need to get from you folks to make sure that what we say reflects, your thoughts, your priorities, your experiences.
Okay.
Great.
And where's a good place to bicycle in Passaic County, and what makes it a good place to bike? If you want to raise your hand and tell us about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Areas with less traffic, the parks, the Hillcrest and Toto area where the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Garrett Mountain has that really nice, wonderful loop. Lots of great mountain biking up in Ringwood. Okay.
These
and then
are great. Yeah. Great comments.
And then what do you feel is the most important thing that the county can do to improve bicycling? I see more, yeah. The parks. Better connectivity. Safety. Now, these are really important themes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep, the tourism. We didn't really talk much about the economic potential and for bicycle tourism. And as someone said, Passaic County is beautiful. I think it is a little bit of a hidden gem for some people. Well, thank you all. This is really great and been very valuable for us. I hope it's been worthwhile for all of you as well.
And maybe we have Mike or Andras or Amy, if you guys want to make kind of a closing statement or.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us tonight and giving us your great feedback. This is not the only public meeting for this project. There will be another public meeting in the late winter, early spring, where we have our recommendations that we want to hear your feedback on too. And as Liz said, you can continue going to the website to fill out the questionnaire and draw on the map until January 15th. And you can, if you can share the website with anybody you know, that would be great. My email here is again too, if you have any other comments that you think about after the meeting, more than welcome to contact me.
And thanks everybody. Remember, there's plenty of ways to participate. It doesn't stop here, and we're recording all this and writing down your comments. We'll make sure that it's adequately reflected, and we appreciate your opportunity, your honesty, and all your great comments. And we also want to thank our funding agency. Amy's here from NJTPA, the Regional Planning Authority in Northern New Jersey, and they help make this kind of work possible. So thank you.